Thank you for staying with us on the program. Let's now get the conversation started. I have an expert who has been into exportation for the past 40 years. Chief Dr. John Isemede, FIEX, is a public and private sector trade expert with over 40 years experience on certified training export with the WTO, that is the World Trade Organization, holds basic certifications in benchmarking for trade and ITC. He is the immediate past Director General and Chief Executive Officer of the Apex Chamber of Commerce of Nigeria, NACIMA, 2010 to 2015. A one-time consultant with UNIDO, an export value chain matters, and a Nigeria consultant to ECOWAS. A member of the Institute of Export International Trade in Petersburg, UK. Member of the Institute of Export and Shipping Management. A fellow in Ghana and Nigeria. It's a great pleasure to have you on the show this afternoon, Chief Dr. John Isemede.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you, viewers at home.
All right.
I'm extremely happy to be with you this afternoon.
Okay, thank you. I can actually say Happy New Year because the last time we had a conversation was sometime around last year, thereabout.
Yeah, the year is still very young. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Doc. All right, let's make sense out of rebasing of the GDP, that's the gross domestic product of Nigeria as a nation. First, what is the rebasing in itself? What does it really mean to the Nigeria economy? Before we dive later on into inflation and all of that, let's talk about rebasing in itself.
Very much. If I jump into the word rebasing, a lot of people will not understand.
Okay.
Because this discussion is not for the two of us alone.
Absolutely.
Then you have students.
Yeah.
You have professors, you have professionals.
Yeah.
And so also people want to know what is basing. All these revolve around economic activities. And when you talk of economic activity, you have micro and macro. And so also you have domestic trade and international trade. Since we have signed up into the WTO, there is nothing like home advantage any longer. So Nigeria is not the only country rebasing, but ours is not good enough.
Okay.
In the first place, it's just like the ICC, International Chamber of Commerce, who says that every 5 years, or the WTO under trade facilitation, that every 5 years we must update our trade policy. That is in that same vein that every 5 years we must rebase our economy. The economy in the first place, I think the last one was in 2014, which is almost 10 years ago, better than the trade policy that for 22 years we did not even review our trade policy. So, as a Nigerian, it's not just say Nigeria, Nigeria, Nigeria. We have signed all the agreements on earth, from ECOWAS to WTO to AFTA and all that. Let us consider ourselves with other countries. I'm not saying that we should consider Nigeria with Lesotho.
Okay.
Or with the Gambia, or with Tunisia.
Yeah.
Let's compare Nigeria with, before I go into the real question, let's compare Nigeria with Australia. Australia is almost 7 times the size of Nigeria. The GDP is about 1.7 or 1.8 trillion. And the per capita income is about $65. All right, if you look at the USA has a population of 340, and the per capita income is $44,000, controlling over 22% of the global market of import and export. Australia is the biggest country when you took of the Oceania. Canada is the biggest when you consider North and Central America.
Yeah.
All right. Brazil is the biggest, and Brazil is almost 10 times the size of Nigeria.
Okay.
The population of Brazil is 210, and their per capita income is $10,000. Russia is the biggest when you look at the Asian bloc, and the population of Russia is a little above half of the population of Nigeria, and the per capita income is $15,000. What of Nigeria? Nigeria is not the biggest in Africa when you are looking at the sizes of country. Nigeria is the biggest, followed by Congo DRC, and Sudan. Nigeria is number 15. But in terms of population, we control more than 20% of the African population.
Yeah.
Before the rebasing, what was the size of our economy? It was over 500 billion. Today, what is it? So when you are now talking of rebasing, rebasing has to do with economic activity because man is an economic man.
Okay.
And when you now talk of economy, by simple definition, you are looking at the study of scarce resources.
Yeah.
And that scarce resources, you are looking at the allocation of the resources in the term of production, in the term of distribution, and in the term of consumption. So we consume more of import. What are we producing? That is why it is important that we have to rebase the economy in the sense that economy affects individual, the country collectively. Rebasing of an economy refers to the process of updating your economic activities.
Okay.
For instance, how do you calculate the GDP?
Yeah.
The issue of GDP came after the Second World War. The IMF, the World Bank, and so on and so forth. Why are we not listening to experts in Nigeria? If all these policies are working, should Nigeria be at this stage today? Then replacing the old, what is rebasing? It's just replacing the old reference of calculating how we are faring. That gives you the GDP. And to reflect a better country and structure on size has to be based on the size of the economy, where we get our per capita income. What is the per capita income of Nigeria today? Is it more than 1,000 US dollars? If the policies are working, now we can see that some of these policies are not working. That is why, with the rebasing of the economy, that we have to start now to start managing our economic activities very well.
All right. Okay, Doc, let's look at the GDP in itself, our gross domestic product as a nation. The last time this rebasing was done, like you said, is in 2014. 2014 is more than 10 years now. This is 2025. So if we're making calculation, we're talking about 11 years down the line. Would we really say our GDP has performed well? I don't want to tie it now to an administration, say the administration of the person there or the administration of the person who left before the person there. For this past 10 years, when it happened for the last time, this is what we're supposed to be doing every five years according to the economic principle. But for the past 10 years, we've not done this. But would we really say that our GDP has performed or is performing for this past 10 years as an expert that you are?
All right. 2014, I was the Director General of the Chamber of Commerce. That is the apex chamber in Nigeria.
Yeah.
I was directly involved. And what we came out with at that time was over 500 US dollars. Today we are hovering, are we up to 200,000 US dollars today? Because the culture of importation has not helped this country.
Okay.
The devaluation has not helped this country.
Yeah.
Managing the exchange rate, and people selling dollars in front of central bank or the bank has not helped. Because we made a mistake in 1993-95 under General Sani Abacha with the merger of the official exchange rate 22 and 3. We could have been able to learn from that. But the problem is that we look up to America and we look up to IMF as our savior. There is no law of nature that ideas and good things want to come from the West into Africa. We produce cocoa. If you look at with the rebasing and all that, they want to add other things to skyrocket the GDP. But is that going to help in a country where we are not producing anything, that we import virtually everything? With the import culture, nothing is going, and the economy is nosediving on a daily basis. So rebasing the economy is important. It's giving us a snapshot of how we are faring. Thank you.
Okay. Now, if rebasing is not the problem, like you said, what can really be done? Because as at 2014, more than $500 billion, but recently, after it was rebased, we're hovering around $200 billion. What is really the problem? Or rather, what has been the problem, basically? I know you mentioned export is not going to help us and all that. Do we really need now to look inward to do something different in order to make our GDP to continue to grow, because we can remain stagnant in one place and expect life to be better for us as a nation. You know, you heard me read out the Business Roundup story where even the state-owned oil company, the NNPCL, was failing to even remit money into the government coffers. They sell crude, they make money out of it, but at the end of the day, this money doesn't go to the right channels they are supposed to go to. What should we really do differently as a nation in order to be at the right trajectory?
A nation supposed to run on 4 legs.
Okay.
The monetary policy.
All right.
Is the monetary policy aligning with the fiscal policy?
Okay.
Because a vehicle has 4 wheels.
Yeah.
Or 4 tires. The one by the driver's side is the monetary policy.
Okay.
The one by the passenger side is the fiscal policy.
Okay.
The one at the back is the national planning that invariably we finance that's in charge of this rebasing. Okay. The last one is the private sector, which is production.
Okay.
So these 4 has to align.
Yeah.
But if you now talk of the way we run this country, has the exchange rates improved? How many exchange rates are we running in this country?
That's true.
Then the policy, the monetary policy, is it aligning with fiscal policy?
Okay.
Then the last one, if it's aligned, why would the inflation figure now above the roof? Because if you are talking of rebasing, with high exchange rates, and CBN have printed so much money, and what CBN has done in the past, that a few years ago, printing heap of naira, will that solve our problem in the next 5-10 years?
Okay.
Because inflation will continue to go up. Then if you now devalue, what are we doing with the bond market? Some of the policies of government that when we had issues with Nigeria was too hasty, which I believe is going to damage part of the economy. Because under the ECOWAS agreement, you are allowed to circulate freely. Goods are allowed to circulate freely. There are 6 types of borders in the world. The one we maintain in ECOWAS is not like the border between South Korea and North Korea. It's not like the one in the European Union where borders have been reduced to mere borders. Ours is a free border.
Yeah.
So even before Niger got independent and Benin, a week before then, there was an agreement, or OCBN, that Niger being a landlocked country, which again, if you look at the WTO, that you cannot close border against them. They must have access to Benin port. That is why even in ECOWAS, we signed the transit agreement. If they say they are going, what effort is the Nigerian private sector? Because government is looking at the political angle. What of the existing agreement? People are selling cement there. People are selling made in Nigerian products. So also we are bringing this into this country. These 3 countries have a population of 80 million. When I was in Unilever, I had my products from here to Senegal. And we have it in Algeria. We have it in South Sudan and all that. So if you now close border and you are rebasing the economy, is it on the political ground or the private sector? Because government cannot borrow. Government is borrowing because we are not producing. There are no ambassadors to be the marketing manager of made in Nigerian products. The Mr. President is traveling around the world. And who is he signing agreement with? And when you come, how do we domesticate this agreement in line with Section 12 of the Constitution or trade promotion in line with Section 19? So when you now say you are rebasing the economy, there are certain fundamentals that we have to look at home. What are we doing in the area of production? Because other countries have given you, look at Malaysia, who came to Benin, close to where you are. I was there in 2012, 2019. Look at what they are pushing out from palm oil. And look at the GDP of Malaysia. Look at the per capita income. Look at the standard of living. So other countries like South Africa, look at what they are doing. Look at Egypt. So let us compare ourselves with our mates. It's not it's not borrowing. It's not rebasing GDP. Because what we have seen, the figures we are seeing now, is frightening.
Okay. Doc, you've said a whole lot because as a nation, we need to compare ourselves with our mates. And when we say our mates, definitely we're not talking about the US, we're not talking about the UK, we're not even talking about, those other countries that have gone far beyond or above us. We should look around countries that are within. Looking at the way how it's going to impact us positively as a nation. But away from the whole rebasing, let's now move talking inflation. And I still have my guest, Dr. John Isemede, an ITC WTO expert, former DG of NASIMA, so many cap tied to his feather in terms of analyzing Nigeria's economy. Doc, let's shift to the other part of the topic, which is inflation. We see the statistics always coming out on the 15th of every month. The one for December came out in January. We were standing at 34.8%, or rather 80%. So the one of January has been released. It was released 2 days ago by the statistical body, National Bureau of Statistics. We saw the Statistician General of the Federation, Adeniran, reading out, telling us this is it, this is that inflation has dropped to 24.48%. Now, the question in the mind of a whole lot of Nigerians, within the space of 1 month, how come it dropped from 34 to 24? What happened? Is this really true? Does it impact the services that we see on a daily basis, the cost of living, the things we buy in the market, and all that? Let's make sense out of this whole inflation trend, because it seems this has been a major problem in the Nigerian economy.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank God that we are all Nigerians. We have finished rebasing.
Yeah.
And rebasing is to give us the structure, the actual size, and the level of economic activities in Nigeria.
Yeah.
So if we now go down memory lane, there was a time the UK was borrowing money from Nigeria.
Yeah.
When
somebody told me about that.
Yes, I can tell you as well.
Yeah.
Even in 1974, IMF borrowed money from Nigeria.
They even told me at the time our naira was even having more value than the dollar.
When I was in the primary school in Benin, opposite Oba Market, there was a coin we used to call dollar. 25 kobo. No, 25 pence. That was the day of pound shillings pence.
Okay.
When the naira was introduced on the 1st of January, 1973, it's supposed to be 20 kobo.
Wow.
The naira was devalued that same day by almost 100%. That was why it became 50 kobo. Okay. Because we were listening to the IMF, we were listening to the British, because who refused to send it, because we used the British pound shillings pence for another 9 years. When Ghana got independent in 1957, they dropped it and came up with the CD. And if Nigeria has to drop the pound shilling pen, it will be difficult for the British government, because there's nowhere. We were forced to use that same currency from 1960 to 1972. So when you now talk of the UK, I can give you what Nigeria has done. Look at this year's budget. We are going to borrow almost 16 trillion. Where is that money coming?
Budget?
To service.
Yeah.
So Nigeria continue, a country that was giving money out when we had NIFO, we had the UAC, we had the Nigerian Airways flying all over the world. When I was export manager, I was not waiting for British Airways. It was Nigerian Airways that were taking me into Congo DRC, everywhere to Kenya. Today, we don't even have a shipping line. And it is easier to bring a container from Canada or from China than to take goods from here to Benin Republic. So these are the issues. It's not a matter of this. If we now look at inflation, what is inflation? What is causing inflation?
Exactly.
When we are not producing. Yeah. I told a friend, I said, things are still very cheap. 3-4 years ago, I made a projection that things will be too bad. If you travel around those states, what are they producing? If it's not pure water, and the few people who are cracking stones in a donut, what is it? Can you get the quantity of palm oil in the 3 plants in Edo State for us to say we are self-sufficient in palm production? We were producing 50% of the world in the past, and there were no plantations. There were palm oil from palm trees scattered by rodents and rats. But today, everybody is talking of A, B, C, D. What is inflation? How did we get here?
Exactly, that's the question.
What backed the printing of the money? It was on political ground, not for economic ground.
Okay.
That is why Nigeria has become so weak. A country that has 36 governor, plus how many ministers to be at this stage? Even all these ministers, governor, local government chairman, there are no target assignment given to them on the economy. So what is inflation? When you say inflation has reduced by 10%, is it by miracle?
Exactly.
Then secondly, is it that the level of economic activities have just changed overnight? That we are not importing as we used to import.
Yeah.
We can now grow rice. Even the measure of the exchange rate between the official and all that, the BCC and the Malams are no longer there, the one we call Aboki FM.
Yeah, the
So
Bureau de
the
change.
question we should ask ourselves, we have professors. Even before Nigeria get independent, we have professors. Why are they not talking? Why are they not joining us? Why has the private sector now decided to join government, to be begging and asking for seats to be a board member?
Okay.
And they will now turn and said the policies are not working. What is inflation? Too much money in circulation.
Okay.
And you are not producing.
Okay.
And what is causing the inflation? What is causing the unemployment? What is causing the problem? It's just that the monetary policy is not aligning with the fiscal policy.
Okay.
And who are these people who are be pushing? There was a time, the CFA, when we went to meet President Yedama from Benin in 1974,
and Togo,
after he commissioned UBTH, we were given 20,000 CFA. Parents now invaded the school to meet the principal that the children have been given 20,000. You know, 20,000, how much was it? The fluctuating be to that time? 1,200. For a child to be given 20,000. And for that period that the CFA was 1,000 to 1 naira.
Wow.
And today, what is the CFA to the naira? These are the things we are not producing. What is inflation? Too much money in circulation. And inflation, we can look at it from 3 or 4 angles. There's what we call hyperinflation.
Yeah.
Walking inflation with 2 legs. Creeping inflation. And the other one is galloping inflation. If you now talk of food inflation, a country that has no commodity board is now telling us that the prices of food items are is just the season. If we have commodity export, if we have commodity exchanges and commodity boards, we will be comfortable as Nigerians.
Okay.
Because it's like a cobweb theory. When it's high, you are able to store. The 35 silos owned by the government, what do you have in there? I have visited some of them. There were some we saw, we saw they were auditorium for snakes and all that. So if you now say food inflation, what are we producing? The rice that was distributed during Christmas by MD of banks and all that, did they support local capacity in Nigeria?
No.
Can Agedebode not? Ekpoma was producing rice. Agedebode was producing rice. So also Eme Ora was producing rice. The rice we consume in Edo State, let's now talk at home, not imported. So the formula used is what we cannot understand.
Okay, exactly. That is the question on the lips of every Nigerian.
So is the government going to force it down our throat and tell our member in the private sector that inflation has reduced?
And we're not seeing it.
34. Now you cannot buy things. Prices are jumped every day.
Yeah.
What we used to buy in the past, you cannot buy now.
Absolutely.
Go to the street, people cannot buy fuel. When you say the measure, it has caused dislocation. When you remove the subsidy of petroleum, which could have been in stages, it was automatically done, which a lot of companies has made plans. This year, this is my budget to fund the district. I'm using this for production. This is what people have been dislocated. Is it in stagnation? Is the economy growing?
Okay.
Then we have runaway inflation.
Yeah.
We have food inflation.
Okay.
We have demand and supply or demand pull inflation. How can we now say that inflation has reduced from 34
to 24?
So what of the borrowing rate? Has it reduced because the developed world, they are taking loan at 3%. They are taking at 37 or 4, close to this 10%. That is why we cannot import. Sorry, we cannot compete. We cannot engage even with our ECOWAS neighbor. One thing I am certain is that very soon Nigeria will not be able to buy ABCD because there is no production and we will not have money to import as usual.
Okay, Doc, you said so much, and your words is something that it's been touching me right here as I'm just listening to you, because everything you said, it's nothing but the truth about what we see on the Nigerian economy. But as an expert, someone who understands the economics, expert with WTO, World Trade Organization, ITC, former DG Nasima, and so many feathers tied to your cap, what would be your advice, or well, trying to look for a way forward? Because I'm pretty sure we can continue like this. They might release next month or this month's inflation figure by next month. They will tell us it has reduced again by 10%, but we are not seeing it generally on the economy. What would be your advice? What can you really say to the managers of the economy, what they should do, what should be put in place for us to have a stabilized economy where every Nigerian, every citizen of the country, whether you're earning low, you're earning high, or you're not even earning at all, can be able to live a comfortable life, as we begin to wrap up the show?
Very much. When we were in University of Benin, the most important person to us in Nigeria, after Mr. President, was the chief economist of Central Bank.
Okay.
He will be able to give us projection. And Professor Idemudi Albadan will tell us, if you are not satisfied with what I said, go to Central Bank, Ring Road. They connect the the econometrics of the nation.
Yeah.
For the past 10, 20 years, what have been the allocation to agriculture?
Okay.
That we want to feed the giant of Africa, want to feed Nigeria with 2 to 3% of the total value of the budget. In countries, we don't have more than 4 or 5 people advising Mr. President because the economic advisor is one of the life wire. But here in Nigeria, we have more than 10 different ease of doing business, PEC, so on and so forth. The question I want to ask, where is the central coordination? Like the meeting we had in Onitsha, Oka, Enugu this week.
Yeah.
Where is the CCC to coordinate export activities? One MDA will come and say, I'm in charge of a standard. You follow them to their lab. You follow them to their office, there is no lab. They are in charge of standard. Some will say they are in charge of ABCD. They have nothing to show. Where is the central coordination of this economy? CBN will say one thing, finance will say another thing, the local government will say another thing. Where is the coordination? That the private sector has been beating hands down. They are now sitting at the back, which is not supposed to be. In other countries, it is the private sector that is creating jobs, it's the private sector that employing people, it's the private sector that is into production, that they are paying taxes. Nigerians are paying taxes and you don't get the services. Every day you hear of a mobile phone, you hear of the port, you hear of MPA, you hear of this and you hear of that. How can we survive as a nation with these taxes? There is nowhere in the world where people don't pay taxes. They say, but here, they just overload it on us and we don't even take part in the deliberation. Another sad aspect, government officials will move out of this country to go and sign an agreement without the private sector. Who is going to implement, who is going to play? There are more than 700 agreements we have signed with the rest of the world from 1960 to the present day. Why is it, even if we now take the inflation figure is that, compared with the agreement with France, does it line up? There are so many things we have to say, like rebasing the economy.
Yeah.
What are we doing in the area of developing the manpower?
Okay.
Where is the institution developing the managers of tomorrow? We read courses and all that are relevant, irrelevant and all that. The world has gone beyond all this and it's ITC all the way. In Nigeria, a country of over 200 million cannot boast of 5 export managers, and you are rebasing the economy, think that things are improving. I don't believe it. Thank you.
So, Doc, we really want to thank you for your time on the show this afternoon, because everything you said is what we see on the economy on a daily basis. Your words, I'm pretty sure you sent a message that enough really need to be done in terms of manufacturing, export, not import, basically, because we cannot rely on import bringing in. We are not producing anything. We're taking out, and also we cannot rely on borrowing on a daily basis. Borrow to service budget, to borrow for this, to borrow for that. I really want to thank you for your time and your vast knowledge that you've expended on the show this beautiful afternoon. We're pretty sure that when else we call upon you, you'll be available for us again to talk to us. Thank you very much, Chief Dr. John Isemede. All right, that's the size of our show this afternoon. It's been a great time on the show. We hope next week we'll be able to come up with something interesting again for you, for your viewing pleasure. I'm Lawrence Osifo saying see you again. Bye for now.